5 people you must avoid in old age, even family. Advice from old people. Imagine this. You've spent decades working hard, building relationships and giving your time, love, and effort to others. Now, in your golden years, you should finally be able to enjoy peace, reflection, and the company of those who truly care about you. But what if some of the people around you are secretly robbing you of that peace? As we grow older, life isn't about chasing success anymore. It's about protecting your happiness, your well-being, and your emotional health. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone deserves a place in your life. Some people, yes, even family, will drain your energy, take advantage of your kindness, and leave you feeling exhausted instead of fulfilled. Neither it's the manipulator who makes you feel guilty every time you say no, the narcissist who never listens, only talks, the constant critic who finds something wrong with everything you do, the irresponsible one who always needs rescuing, or the ungrateful person who takes and takes without ever giving back. These relationships are more than just frustrating. They can steal the joy from your golden years, leaving you feeling trapped, emotionally drained, and even questioning your own worth. But here's the good news. You have the power to protect yourself. In this video, we're diving deep into the 5 types of people you must avoid in old age. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect and self-love. Because your peace is precious, your happiness is worth protecting, and your time, it belongs to you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly who to distance yourself from and how to reclaim the joyful, peaceful life you deserve. So, if you're ready to put yourself first and make the most of your golden years, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Let's begin. 1. The manipulator. In ancient China, the sage Lao Tzu, the great philosopher of the Tao Te Ching, once wrote, "Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner." This truth, spoken over 2,500 years ago, remains as relevant today as it was then. The manipulator thrives on our fear of disappointing others, our need to be seen as kind, our reluctance to set boundaries. A story from the Warring States period tells of an old farmer whose village always turned to him for help. At first it was small things, a neighbor asking for a loan, a friend requesting his ox for plowing, but over time their asks became demands. They knew he was kind, and so they took advantage of his generosity. He worked harder, giving more than he could afford, until one day he had nothing left, not even his ox, which had died from exhaustion. When he finally refused their requests, they turned on him, calling him selfish and unkind. He was heartbroken. But then, something remarkable happened. His burden lifted. He realized he had spent his life carrying others at his own expense, and in that moment he vowed never to be a prisoner of guilt again. The old farmer learned something that many of us realize too late in life. The people who truly care about you will never demand more than you can give. And those who do, never truly cared to begin with. I suppose every one of us has encountered a manipulator in our lives. Some of us meet them at work, some in friendships, and for the unlucky ones like me, they exist within our own families. For nearly 30 years, I was the safety net for my younger sister, Eleanor. She was my only sibling, and from the time we were children, I felt responsible for her well-being. Our mother died young, and my father worked long hours, so I stepped into the role of protector before I even understood what it meant. When we were kids, it was small things. She would take my share of dessert, borrow my favorite books and never return them. It was childish, harmless. But as we grew older, it became more serious. She leaned on me for everything. She got married young and had children before she was ready. Whenever she had trouble, she called me. When money was tight, I was her lender. When she needed a place to stay, I opened my home. When she wanted comfort, I listened, I soothed, I made it better. But here's the thing about manipulators. Their need is never ending. By the time I was in my 60s, retired and living alone, Eleanor had become a storm that never passed. I had spent my entire life being her safety net, but no one had ever been mine. She only called when she needed something. Never to ask about my health, never to share a kind word, only to take one day when I was 70, I had a small heart attack. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to wake me up. I was in the hospital for 3 days. I didn't tell Eleanor right away because, for the first time in my life, I wanted to see if she would call just to check on me. She didn't. 2 weeks passed, and when my phone finally rang, I picked it up with hope in my chest. Maybe she had felt my absence. Maybe, just maybe, she had called to say, "How are you, sister?" But no, she needed money. Again, that was the moment, the exact moment, I realized I had been nothing but a resource to her. I wasn't a sister in her eyes. I was a bank, a problem solver, an emotional crutch, and when I could no longer serve that purpose, I was nothing. I sat there in my chair, staring out at the autumn leaves, feeling the weight of all the years I had given away. I thought about Lao Tzu's words, "Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner." And then, for the first time in my life, I said it. "I'm sorry, Eleanor, but I can't help you this time." She was stunned. She got angry. She accused me of being cruel, of abandoning her. But I didn't argue. I just said it again, calmly, "I can't help you this time." And do you know what happened? She never called again. That was 5 years ago. At first, the silence was deafening. I had spent so many years being needed that I had forgotten what it felt like to be at peace. But, as time went on, I began to understand. Losing a manipulator is never a loss, it's a gift. Now, I won't tell you that setting boundaries is easy. It's not. It's one of the hardest things you will ever do, especially when the manipulator is someone you once loved deeply. But here's what I want you to remember. You are not a resource to be used. You are not obligated to rescue others at the cost of yourself. You deserve relationships that nourish your soul, not drain it. Manipulators will call you selfish. Let them. They will accuse you of abandoning them. Let them. Because here's the truth. If your relationship with someone depends on you sacrificing your well-being, then it was never a healthy relationship to begin with. I know many of you watching this have stories of your own. Maybe you too have given too much. Maybe you're still caught in the trap of being someone's safety net at your own expense. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever had to set a boundary with a manipulator? How did it change your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. Let's remind one another that our peace is worth protecting. And if this story resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because you, yes you, deserve a life filled with peace, love, and respect. Thank you for listening. 2. The self-absorbed narcissist. In ancient Athens, the philosopher Socrates was known for his wisdom, not because he spoke the loudest, but because he listened. One day, a young man approached him, eager to boast of his achievements. He spoke of his wealth, his conquests, his knowledge. Without pause, without invitation, Socrates simply listened. After an hour, the young man finally asked, "What do you think of me, great teacher?" Socrates smiled and said, "A cup that is full cannot hold wisdom. You have spoken so much that you have left no space to learn." The young man was silent. This lesson, spoken over 2,000 years ago, still holds true today. There are people in this world who are so full of themselves that they leave no space for others. They do not listen, they do not reflect, and they do not truly care. They take up all the air in the room, leaving others to suffocate in their silence. And if you have ever known a self-absorbed narcissist, you know exactly what that feels like. I suppose I should have seen the signs earlier. My friend Harold had always been charming, the type of man who could command a room with his stories. He was intelligent, well-spoken, and had a way of making people laugh. But what I didn't realize until much later was that his conversations were never about anything but himself. We had known each other since our 20s. Back then, I didn't mind that he dominated our talks. I was young, still finding my way in the world. He was bold, confident, the kind of person who made everything seem exciting. But as we aged, something strange happened. I started to disappear. Every time we met, I would try to share a memory or a thought, but he would interrupt before I even finished a sentence. "Ah, that reminds me of when I traveled to Italy. Let me tell you about my latest project. Oh, you'll love this one. I know exactly how you feel. Let me tell you about what happened to me last week." It didn't matter what I said, he always found a way to turn it back to himself. At first I tolerated it. I thought, well, that's just Harold. That's how he's always been. But over time, I began to feel invisible. I tested a theory once. One evening over dinner, I told Harold that I had lost an old friend, someone very dear to me. I spoke slowly, trying to hold his attention, waiting to see if he would pause just for a moment to ask how I was feeling. He didn't. Instead he said, "Oh, that reminds me, when I lost my uncle it was a huge ordeal, let me tell you about it." And just like that he turned my grief into his stage. It took me decades, but one day, I realized something. I had spent my whole life being his audience, but he had never once been mine. And what's worse, I had let him. That day, as Harold launched into yet another story about himself, I interrupted him for the first time in 50 years. I said, "Harold, I don't think you've ever asked me how I'm doing, not really." He looked startled. "Of course I care," he said. "You're my oldest friend." "Then, why do you ever listen?" I asked. There was silence. And in that silence, I saw something I had never noticed before. Harold wasn't just self-absorbed. He was incapable of true connection. He only valued me as an audience, not as a person. That was the last time we met for dinner. If you have ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, whether it's a friend, a family member, or even a spouse, you understand this pain. It is the pain of being unseen, unheard, unvalued. So let me tell you what I have learned after many years of wasted words. You deserve to be heard. If someone never listens, they are not truly your friend. You do not exist to be someone's audience. If they only talk about themselves, they don't value you, they use you. You are not selfish for walking away. Socrates was right, you cannot fill a cup that is already full. Some people are so consumed with themselves that they will never make room for others. And here is the most important truth of all. Real relationships are built on mutual respect. If you find yourself in a friendship where you are always the listener, always the supporter, always the background character in someone else's story, it may be time to walk away. I know I am not the only one who has lived this lesson. Maybe you too have had a friend who never truly listened. Maybe you have walked away from a narcissistic relative, or perhaps you're still struggling with the decision. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to walk away from a self-absorbed person? What was the final moment that made you say enough? Share your story in the comments below. Let's remind one another that we are worthy of being heard. And if this resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because in this space, your voice matters. Thank you for listening. 3. The constant critic. In ancient China, the great philosopher Confucius once taught, "It is easy to hate, and it is difficult to love." This is how the whole scheme of things works. All good things are difficult to achieve, and bad things are very easy to get. What he meant was simple. It is always easier to criticize than to create. It is always easier to tear down than to build up. But a life spent in criticism, whether receiving it or giving it, is a life wasted, Confucius told of a traveler who sought wisdom. He approached an elder in a village and asked, "How do I live a life without being judged?" The elder smiled and said, "Do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. That is the only way to avoid criticism." The traveler was silent. He understood. To live, to make choices, to stand for something, this invites judgment, but it is better to be criticized for being true to yourself than to be forgotten for being nothing at all. I wish I had understood this lesson earlier in my own life. There was a time when I thought the words of others defined me, when I believed that if someone criticized me it must mean I was doing something wrong. I spent decades chasing approval that never came, and for the longest time I let the voice of one man shape the way I saw myself. My father. He was the kind of man whose presence could silence a room with a glance. He had a sharp tongue, and he used it freely, especially on me. "You're too soft," he would say. "You let people walk all over you. You're not smart enough to run a business. You're wasting your time with all these dreams. Be practical." No matter what I did, it was never quite good enough. When I got my first job, he said, "You're wasting your talent there." When I got a promotion, he said, "It's about time, should have happened years ago." When I started my own small business, he said, "You'll fail." And when I didn't fail, when my business actually began to thrive, he said, "Well, anyone can succeed if they get lucky." I spent my entire youth trying to prove myself to a man who had already made up his mind about me. And no matter how hard I worked, I never heard the words I longed for. "I'm proud of you." I was 53 years old when I realized the truth. 53 years of chasing an approval that would never come. 53 years of thinking that maybe if I worked harder, spoke better, did more, he would finally see me. And then, one day, I woke up and thought, what if I stopped trying? That evening we had dinner together. He was older now, but his words hadn't softened. "Your restaurant could do better if you just listened to me," he said. For the first time in my life, I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to explain. I simply smiled and said, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm happy with what I've built." And then I changed the subject. That was the moment I realized I didn't need his approval anymore. His criticism wasn't about me. It never had been. Critics criticize because of their own insecurities, because of their own disappointments, because it is easier to tear down others than to confront their own failures. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in years. If you have someone in your life who always finds fault, let me tell you something important. Their words do not define you. Not the family member who belittles you, not the friend who always has something negative to say, not the voice in your head that repeats their words. You are enough just as you are. You do not need to prove your worth to anyone. You do not need to change yourself to fit someone else's expectations. The next time someone criticizes you, ask yourself, is this helping me grow, or is it just negativity? If it's negativity, let it go. If it's destructive, walk away. Life is too short to live under the weight of someone else's judgment. Live for yourself, not for their approval. I know many of you watching this have been judged unfairly. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a spouse. Maybe it was society itself. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever had to break free from the voice of a critic? What helped you let go? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's remind each other that we are worthy just as we are. And if this message resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because your voice matters here. 4. The irresponsible person. There is an old fable from Aesop, the great storyteller of ancient Greece, about a foolish man who was drowning in a river. A wise man saw him struggling and rushed to help. He stretched out his hand, but the drowning man refused to reach for it, crying instead, "No, save me your way, but don't ask me to lift my arm." The wise man sighed and walked away, saying, "If you will not help yourself, then neither can I." The lesson is clear. No one can save a person who refuses to take responsibility for their own survival. And yet how many times in our lives have we stretched out our hand to someone who refuses to help themselves? I have, more times than I care to admit. And the hardest lesson I ever learned was this: some people are not drowning, they are choosing to drift, and they will take you under with them, if you let them. For nearly 30 years, my brother Daniel was my burden to carry. He was my younger brother by 5 years, the charming one, the funny one, the dreamer. While I spent my youth studying, working, building a life, Daniel drifted through his days chasing quick wins and easy roads. He was always one step away from success, but somehow he never took that final step. I should have known from the start. At 17, he dropped out of school, saying he had bigger plans. At 21, he borrowed money to start a business, then abandoned it within a year. At 25, he got into gambling, convinced he had a system that couldn't fail. It failed, and each time I was the one he called. "Just a little loan, brother. I'll pay you back. I just need a place to stay, just for a month. You know I do the same for you, right?" But he wouldn't have, because that's the difference between responsibility and dependence. At first, I helped because I loved him. Then I helped because I felt obligated. And in the end, I helped because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. End quote. That is how irresponsible people trap you. They make you believe that if you stop carrying them, they will fall. But the truth is, they have always had the power to stand, they just never had to. The last time I bailed Daniel out, I was 61 years old. He was 56, still making the same mistakes. He called me late one night. His voice was panicked. "Brother, I need your help. It's bad this time." He owed $15,000 to some loan sharks. I could hear the desperation in his voice. For the first time, he sounded afraid, and I almost gave in. But something inside me snapped. I thought of the dozens of times I had saved him, the thousands of dollars I had given him. The years of stress, the sleepless nights, the weight of his burdens that were never mine to carry. And I asked myself, what if I say no? What if this time, I let him face the consequences of his own choices? So I did. "I'm sorry, Daniel, but I can't help this time." Silence. Then, anger. "So that's it? You're just going to let them come after me? You've always had other options, Daniel," I said. "You just never wanted to take them." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. For months, I didn't hear from him. I worried. Of course I did, but I refused to reach out. Then one evening he called me, not to ask for money, but to talk. "You know, I hated you for a long time after that night," he admitted. "But I get it now." Left with no choice, Daniel had finally done what he should have done years ago. He had taken responsibility. He got a job. He worked off his debts. He stood on his own for the first time in his life. And all it took was one person refusing to rescue him. There is a difference between helping and enabling. Helping is lifting someone up when they are trying to climb. Enabling is carrying them when they refuse to walk. If you have someone in your life who always needs saving, ask yourself, do they make an effort to fix their own problems, or do they always expect you to do it? Are you the only one making sacrifices in the relationship? Do they ever give back, or do they only take? If you find yourself exhausted, frustrated, and carrying burdens that aren't yours, it's time to step back. Let them face their own consequences. Let them learn responsibility. Because here's the truth. If someone will not save themselves, you cannot save them. I know I am not the only one who has been in this situation. Maybe you've had a family member who always needed one more loan, one more favor, one more rescue. Maybe you've had a friend who dragged you into their mess over and over again. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever had to step away from someone who refused to take responsibility? How did it change your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's remind each other that we are not responsible for carrying those who refuse to walk. And if this message resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because your peace matters. 5. The ungrateful. There is an old teaching from the Buddha about gratitude and worth. A man once came to the Buddha and insulted him bitterly. He mocked him, called him a fool, and tried to provoke anger. But the Buddha remained calm. Finally, the man asked, "Why do you not respond?" The Buddha smiled and said, "If a man offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man frowned. "To the one who offered it, of course." The Buddha nodded. "Then, I do not accept your insults. They belong to you, not to me." The same is true of ingratitude. When someone fails to appreciate you, when they take without giving, when they treat your kindness as an expectation instead of a gift, their ingratitude belongs to them, not to you. I wish I had understood that lesson earlier in life. For most of my life, I believed that love was sacrifice, that to truly care for someone meant giving without expecting anything in return, and that belief nearly broke me. I learned this lesson the hard way, through the one person I loved more than anyone in the world, my daughter Emily. She was my only child, my pride and joy. From the moment she was born, I poured my entire soul into raising her. Every scraped knee, every school project, every late-night talk, I was there. I worked long hours, saved every penny, so she could have the opportunities I never had. And for a long time, I believed she saw that she appreciated it. But, as she grew older, something shifted. When she was a teenager, I noticed the little things first. She stopped saying thank you. She rolled her eyes when I gave advice. She expected things instead of appreciating them. "Everyone's parents do this," she'd say. "It's not a big deal." By the time she was an adult, it became worse. She never called unless she needed something. She forgot my birthday more than once. She spoke to me like I was an afterthought, like my sacrifices had been nothing more than what I was supposed to do. The final straw came on a Christmas morning. I had spent weeks picking out the perfect gifts for her. I knew she loved designer brands, so I saved up, bought her something special. When she opened it, she barely glanced at it before setting it aside. "Did you keep the receipt?" she asked, bored. I felt something inside me crack. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the gift. It was the realization, the painful, devastating realization, that I had spent my whole life giving to someone who never once thought to give back. That night I sat alone, in my living room. I looked around at the life I had built, the years I had dedicated to my daughter, the love I had given so freely, and I asked myself, what about me? For decades I had lived under the belief that a parent's love should be unconditional, that expecting anything in return was selfish. But is it selfish to want respect? Is it selfish to want appreciation? Is it selfish to want to feel valued by the people you've given your life to? No. And that night I made a decision. I would stop giving to those who did not value me. When I finally started setting boundaries, my daughter did not take it well. The first time she asked me for money and I said, "I can't help you this time," she laughed, thinking I was joking. The second time she was annoyed. The third time she was furious. "I can't believe you do this to your own daughter," she snapped, "after everything I've done for you." I almost laughed at the irony. "And what exactly have you done for me?" I asked, my voice calm. She had no answer. Because the truth is, ungrateful people are not just takers, they are entitled. They believe they deserve what you give, so when you stop, they feel wronged, even though they never appreciated it in the first place. If you have someone in your life who takes without giving, who never says thank you, who expects your kindness as if it is owed to them, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You are not obligated to keep giving to those who do not appreciate you. Your time is valuable. Your love is valuable, your effort is valuable, and if someone cannot see that, that is their burden to bear, not yours. The next time someone takes you for granted, step back and ask yourself, does this person appreciate what I do, or do they expect it? When was the last time they gave something back, whether time, effort, or just gratitude? How does this relationship make me feel, loved or used? If the answers make your heart ache, then maybe it's time to do what I did. Redirect your kindness. Give your love to those who value it, because you deserve to feel cherished, not drained. I know many of you have felt this pain. Maybe it was a child, a sibling, a friend, or even a spouse. Maybe you too have given and given, only to be met with indifference. If you feel comfortable, I would love to hear your story. Have you ever had to step away from someone who did not appreciate your love? What was the moment that made you realize enough was enough? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's remind each other that we are worthy of gratitude, of kindness, of love. And if this message resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because here, your voice matters. As we grow older, our time becomes more precious. Every moment, every relationship, every act of kindness, they all matter. But not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy. You have spent a lifetime giving, caring, and sacrificing. Now it's time to give that same love to yourself. Surround yourself with people who appreciate you, respect you, and bring you joy. Let go of those who drain you, who take without gratitude, who see your kindness as an expectation rather than a gift. Because your peace, your happiness, and your well-being are worth protecting now. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to step away from someone who didn't appreciate you? How did it change your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's support one another on this journey to a life filled with gratitude, respect, and peace. And if this message spoke to you, give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because you deserve content that values and uplifts you. Thank you for watching. Here's to living life on your own terms.